Hello, and welcome to Watercolor Painting with Tanya. Today, our project is going to include a landscape with sheep. And some of the supplies we're going to have today are a flat, wide brush. This is just a generic brush. There's no specific size. Just a wide, flat brush to apply water to the project. We're going to have a script. We're going to have a flat brush, and then we're going to have a round number 12 brush. This is a number 10 flat. These are, if you don't have these exact sizes, that's okay. We're just going to work with what we have. I've got my gator board, and I'm using today a new paper that I haven't shared in videos, but I have been working with this paper, and I have found that I really enjoy this paper. So this is a Bockingford, and this size is 10 by 7. This is 140 pound, and this is a hot press paper. So we're gonna take our paper out of our folder tablet and apply it. We are gonna use drafting tape, this just keeps your project steady while you're working on it, and then you can move it around more easily. And it also, if you put a lot of paper, a lot of water on your paper, then there could be a chance that it could roll. So this will help with all of those small issues that come up when you're working on a project. So we're going to use the rule of thirds to designate the horizon line for our painting. So just in my head, this is about 6 inches. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. My horizon line is going to be here. So I'm going to start with water at the top, and I'm going to apply water generously to the top, and I'm going to create my own horizon line. If you're not comfortable eyeballing this part, you can use a pencil, and use a ruler if you need to make sure you're going to get the line that you want. But I have been painting long enough to where I can kind of eyeball it. And I'm making sure that I saturate this top area where our clouds are going to be. I have tilted my paper, that way I'm able to notice the change in the light reflecting on the paper. Your paper is wet when it reflects, so I'm just tipping my paper here and there just to make sure. And we have gotten our paper wet. We're going to let this sit for a moment, and I'm going to reach for my spray bottle. And we use our spray bottle on our paint palette to help activate. We're going to activate our paints. So I've got a rag on the side, I've got my water bowl, and I also have a paper towel. So I'm going to wipe down my palette, and I did have a project working on it earlier, so I'm just going to wipe that paint out. Sometimes I like to leave that paint in there, but it's up to you. Today I just decided to go ahead and wipe that out. I'm going to go back to my wide flat brush and pick up cerulean blue Winsor Newton watercolor paint, and I'm going to build my clouds and sky. And I just dipped into my water bowl, and I just got a little extra water, and I'm gonna start letting that paint interact with our paper, and I might tip it, and this will help the paint disperse. And a really easy beginner project. This is it's a basic landscape, and it's a really nice beginner project. And one thing that you'll learn after you paint for a while is that when you create a sky, to get your clouds to look just right, you do have to work with that a little bit. So I have a nice tip that you can use when you are painting. I just have a paper towel. I've wadded it up. I did dip a section of it into some water, and then I'm going to just wad it like this. I'm going to come in and I'm going to create some clouds. I'm just lifting some paint, and that creates some interest in your painting. And let's see, I have a little bit of water here. So we have this is our first part of our painting, and we have this project working. We have this part of our project working for us, and we do need to have this paper dry before we can start the next section. So we're going to use a hair dryer. You're going to use a fan. You know, you're going to take a break. Whatever you need to do to make sure that your top is dry before you start the next part of this project. So for purposes today, because we have a video rolling, I'm going to go ahead and start painting, but you do not want to do this when you're at home, okay? And I'm going to get my number 10 flat, and I'm just going to pick up some sap green, and I'm going to work it onto my palette, and I'm going to create a nice little puddle and add some nice water to this. This is sap green. And I'm going to just start creating our landscape. And this is our foreground. And then I just have water, and I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to pull a little bit down. And I'm going to do this in sections so that it creates visual interest. Some areas are light, some areas are dark. And then I'm going to swap over to our round brush. And notice that this round brush has a tip, and that's what we want. We want our tip, and I'm going to dip into some water. And this is Davy's gray that I'm using here. I need to activate it just a little bit more. So I'm just going to get some on my palette, and I'm going to start creating my sheep. And my sheep, if you've noticed sheep before, you notice that a lot of times when they have longer hair, their wool, you know, it kind of at the bottom, it kind of gets a little thicker because they're walking around in the brush and everything. So that's going to be a little bit darker. So I sit down the shape of my first sheep here. I'm going to let that set for a moment. And I notice right here that I have a bloom, and I'm not a big fan of blooms. So I'm going to take clear water, and we'll come in and smooth this out. So a bloom occurs when there is a section on your paper that has a little bit excess water that's not, you know, blending into the paper. It's just going to sit on top, and it's making your paint move around. So I did introduce more water, so I'm going to watch this for a minute to see if that bloom reforms, because I did spread it out. But I'm just going to keep an eye on it. Seems to be okay. I'm just going to add a little bit of water in this space right here. All right. Then I'm going to come back to my Davy's gray, and I'm going to pick up a little bit more. And I think that this little sheep, he's got a buddy, and I'm just going to come around. I'm just making the shape. It's basically the shape of a U. And I'm going to tap just a little bit up there, and we're going to work odd numbers because our brain likes that in art. Our brain likes odd numbers. So I'm going to come down here, create another, maybe we have a sheep right here, and we have a sheep right here. Okay, so we're going to let that sit for a minute. And this has started to begin to dry, but you know, there again, when you're at home working on this, please work on that when it's the sky is dried and there's no chance that you can incorporate those two areas. I'm going to come in here. This is sap green. I'm going to come in beside the grass area that we started in our landscape. And I'm not going to touch it too close. This one is dry. This one is almost dry. This one is not. These two are still wet. So I'm just going to kind of, I'm going to respect my sheep area, and I'm not going to incorporate the green, because if that is wet, watercolor reacts to water. So if I touch that gray paint right now, it could pull it in and change the color of our sheep. So we want our sheep to stay white, and how we get that is we're going to use the white from our paper. So we're going to paint negative. We're going to paint in a negative way. It's called negative painting. So you paint around the edge of the object that you're painting, so you're basically forming an outline. So we'll continue. And it's not, as you see here, like I've got a little, there's a little discoloration, and that creates the interest and the depth in your painting. So you want to kind of leave some of that in your painting. So now I'm going to come in and pick up, you could use ivory black, or you could use some Payne's gray to do the face and the ears of our sheep. I'm gonna, in this project today, I'm gonna use the Payne's gray, and I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna create the head of the sheep. So these sheep right here, they're turned in this direction, and they have a little ear. They have a little ear, and then this one, our sheep is facing us. So we're gonna make the face towards us, and then we're just gonna put our little ears out to the side. These are on their side. You may have to touch this up just a little bit, but we're just basically getting our shape in there. Okay, I've rinsed out my brush. Then I'm going to come in here with my flat brush, and I'm going to work some of this green, this sap green. I'm going to work in. We'll put the legs on our sheep, but we can do that on top of our grass. So I'm just going to kind of, I was getting a hard edge on this green right here, so that's why I picked it up. Because I don't want to really get a hard edge. I wanted this to blend instead of really have a hard edge. And when you're doing a landscape, the distant areas, they are going to be a little bit darker. So our painting over here, it's a little bit lighter, so this could be a little bit closer to us. And then this area over here could be extended back in our field of vision. So I did notice that I skipped one of our little sheep here. I'm going to go pick up some more of this Payne's gray. This is a side-facing sheep, and put a little ear on there, just like this. And then I'm going to come back with my flat brush. I'm going to pick up some more of that sap green, and I'm going to come in close. And remember, we don't want our green interacting with the darker paint that we have for their head and their ears. So we're gonna try to avoid crossing those two. And then I'm just kind of coming in here and creating some dimension. And this area right here, it's a little white. I'm gonna pick up some, let's see, I'm gonna use this color. This is quinacridone gold. And I'm just gonna put a little bit And then I have just water on my brush, and I'm gonna spread this. You know, that could be some foliage that has, you know, that's being ready to harvest. It could be some flowers in the background. You know, it could just be the sunlight. We don't know exactly what's going on back there, but we're just creating interest and depth into our paintings. Okay, then I'm gonna go back to our sap green and a little bit of water to thin it, because I'm going to get really close to the heads of our sheep right here. And you can use, I am using a flat brush, but, and I did just kind of touch into that dark. That's why you have to wait till it's completely dry when you're doing yours. But you can use a pointier brush. I'm using the flat brush, but I could swap over and use a smaller brush even. I could do that. Let's see what happens if I do a smaller brush. So yeah, it's a little bit more concentrated, the paint color, when you use a smaller brush this way. So you get a different effect if you try that one. And then I'm gonna swap in here with a different brush, and this is a first coat of paint. And if you like the lighter pastel look, this project would be really nice for like a baby's room. You could use that pastel, go with that pastel look, or you could come in with a second coat of paint. You could come back and make it a little bit darker, or when you initially put your paint down, you can actually do it a little bit darker. So you can experiment. This is a really great project. It's good for beginners. Then you can, using advanced techniques that you have learned as an experienced painter, you can incorporate some of those techniques in this type of painting as well. So you can really take this painting into many different areas. Okay, so now our grass is definitely wet over here. So at this moment, we cannot tap in our legs that we're gonna tap in. So I'm going to show you that the legs work great if you have a flat brush. So I'm going to tap into my Payne's Gray and my flat brush, and that is how we're going to make the legs. This sheep is so easy to make. This is our head, if the sheep is facing you, and then these are the ears. And then you can tap a little bit and make them just a little bit wider. And then you leave the white of the paper as the sheep's body. And then you come in and you can paint around. And you can use some of that Davy's gray as the shadow of the darker wool that's on the sheep. So that's easy. That's an easy project right there. That's an easy beginner project. So our little sheep down here, I'm having to work into this green a little bit because I got a hard line. So I'm having to work this a little bit. So the paper is still a little wet in some of our areas, and I'm gonna tip it so I can see exactly where they're wet. And I think this area right here is still dry, and we can do this, and we can do this. And these areas are still wet, so I'm not gonna be able to touch those at this moment. And then I'm gonna come in with a little bit of water on here, on their bodies, because we have a little bit of a hard edge. And I'm just gonna lighten that paint up just a little bit. So and just kind of blend it. So there we go. And then, okay, so over here, we're not going to put our legs in. We have to wait on that part. So let's go back over here. We can work this area a little bit. And again, I'm going to go with my flat brush. And this time it's going to be very dry. I'm just going to get all the water out. I'm going to pick up some paint over here. And then I'm going to come in and create some little pockets where some grass is growing. Then I'm going to pick up my scroll, my liner brush. And I'm just going to make some choppy strokes like this. I'm going to do some choppy strokes just like this. And then when you're making grass, you want to ground it. So then you come in with your brush and you want to add a line of water to make it look like it's, you know, it has grown into the space that you're putting the grass in, that it's actually. And this is yellow ochre. I picked up a few strands of yellow ochre for the grasses, and because we have this yellow back in here, so we're trying to blend everything. So then we're going to come in here. You can start from the top and come down. You can start from the bottom and go up, and you can just have it hover above and just drag it down, touch the paper and drag it down. So there's a couple of different techniques that you can use for grasses, and you just find the one that works best for you. And we don't want too much of that detail in this area, because this is a very loose, fast watercolor project, but it has a lot of bang for your buck for those that are beginning painters. And honestly, that's what you're wanting when you start learning how to paint, because you want some really fantastic finished projects for you that have a lot of interest, and they look professional, and that it just helps you be more willing to put your time in to your painting events whenever you're able to, when you have projects that turn out really well. So okay, and I keep touching that right there, that green, so I still am not able to put those legs in there. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to thin out that gray, that Davy's gray. And you see we did that same thing here, and we did the same thing here, and it just kind of blends it in, and it's more of an indication that that's going on in that area, that there's some extra fur. They need to be sheared. Those little sheep need to be sheared. So yeah, all right, then I'm just gonna touch in here because that's dry now. I can add a little bit more green into that area, and just touch in a little green right there, maybe some that's right there. All right, and then I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna sign it, I'm gonna date it, and I am gonna display this. So please make sure that you are displaying your work, and not just to critique yourself, but it definitely shows your progression and your experience, how you're getting better as an artist. So I hope you enjoy this one, and please stay tuned to more videos that are coming your way.